Hey, it's Cory with Cranberry Alarm Ri3D, and in this video we're going to be looking at how the coral interacts with the coral tree and different passive mechanisms for scoring the coral, as well as some ideas for active ones. So the first thing I want to show is a passive ramp style dropper mechanism for dropping the coral onto L2, L3, and L4. We have this little jig made up. It's just two pieces of polycarb in a V format, and I'm allowing the coral to slide down sort of at an angle. And you can see with some distance, I can even back it up, that coral sliding out of the robot are going to be able to score on L2, L3, and L4. I think one thing that a lot of teams are wondering is what kind of angles can you, get away with for this L4 coral. And even some shallow angles, if you put force behind them, this would need to be an active mechanism. Well, that one fell off, but we have seen some consistency in launching the coral at shallower angles. Of course, the more steep angles are going to be more consistent going for that L4. One thing that we were playing around with just before this video was reverse angles and having a powered mechanism sort of fire the coral out. And then this one, of course, wouldn't work very well for the L4. I'm going to try it, but one thing we weren't entirely expecting first glance at the game was for L1 to be a problem for this sort of passive angled dropper style mechanism, but we found that the coral bounce out more often than not if you're dropping from sort of an L2 height. Let's try this out. That one would score, I believe. It's not very consistent, or it's not as consistent as I think we would like it to be. If you drop from lower down passively, it has a chance of hitting the front lip and just tipping out. And then if I put some force behind it, let's see. So the next thing I want to do is bring the robot in. We have actually mocked out a robot with a vertical bar here, sort of showing how the frame perimeter and bumpers is going to play into scoring onto the coral tree. Your scoring mechanism isn't going to be any closer than around 5 inches away. 4 or 5 inches in order to meet the frame perimeter requirements without extending out. But a passive mechanism has no problem overcoming that gap. And then even for L4, if I'm keeping the same spacing, no issues there. So that was good to see that teams going for a passive mechanism aren't going to need to extend outside of their frame in order to ensure coral scoring. So now I'm over here at the our mock feeder station, and a couple questions that we've been getting in the stream is, how do these look whenever you roll them out of the chute onto the ground? How far can you throw them? And what does that look like? So I'll do a couple throws for you here. If I just keep the coral perpendicular and drop it down, putting a lot of force onto it, it sort of digs into the carpet. Doesn't go very far and isn't very predictable. You can get some distance, but of course, not the most consistent. And then I think the one that most people are interested in is how do they do if you let them roll out parallel. And okay, but not as good as you would like, I think. The PVC sort of hits the ground and tumbles a lot more often. And then if I try and put some like spin on it, just even crazier tumbles. You're not really getting more distance out of it. Catch updates for our ejection and intake methods for the coral on Fun's YouTube channel. We're Cranberry Alarm Ri3D.